Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Draft Class Recap. My name is Matt Flynn. Let's get started. Today, we're talking about the Green Bay Packers, and it's the one that I've been waiting for, and I think a lot of other people probably have been too, because we get to talk about Jordan Love. Um, let me preface this whole draft by saying I'm actually a fan of Jordan Love. I don't mind the pick at all. Was it funny at the time? Yeah, sure, it was hilarious. Was it funny afterwards, to tease Packers fans for a couple days after this draft? Yes, again, hilarious. But at the same time, from a football standpoint, I get it. I will never question a team who takes a quarterback other than maybe, like, for example, taking like Shea Patterson in the fifth. That would be stupid, and that would be absolutely worthy of the most cruel criticism we could possibly think of. But for somebody who was projected to be a first round pick, even though they have Aaron Rodgers, that whole thing, it's still not a bad idea to get the guy if you really like him, because you never know when you're going to be in a position again to get a quarterback with this much potential. It's the occurrences are just unpredictable, and it's the same reason why I always say we have to get past this sunk cost fallacy of taking quarterbacks once every 5 to 6 or whatever it is number of years. Don't worry anymore about taking quarterbacks, once a year, even once every 2 years. Look at Bill Belichick, what he's done in his time with Tom Brady on his team, and how many quarterbacks he's drafted. It's ridiculous. And especially in the first round, I think Arizona taught us a valuable lesson that just because you invested a top 10 pick in a Josh Rosen doesn't mean you shouldn't turn around and invest a number 1 overall pick in a Kyler Murray the next year. So let's just get out of the sunk cost fallacy that you can't take quarterbacks because you already have one or you already took one X number of years ago. All right, having said all of that, Jordan Love went round 1, pick 26, quarterback, Utah State. A very decent career in the Mountain West Conference. Finished his career with 8,600 passing yards. I believe it was 60 touchdowns and 29 interceptions. The hype started with Jordan Love after his sophomore season because he threw 30 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and was lighting the place up. The problem is now his junior year, 20 touchdowns, 17 interceptions. Not exactly, the resume that you're looking for in a first round pick, because we have recency bias. It's always, what have you done for me lately? What did you do in the last bowl game? What did you do in the last season? What did you do at the combine? So we are, victims of recency bias, and it happens. It happens to the best of us, even me. It's not like I'm scolding people or anything like that, but just be aware of it. It exists. But Jordan Love had a pretty questionable junior year, and a lot of people thought he could benefit from going back, for his senior year. But apparently it didn't matter because the Packers fell in love with him. They traded up to get him, even though they have Aaron Rodgers on the roster. Now, this isn't a similar situation to what happened with Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers at all, because two things. One, Brett Favre was already showing a little bit of decline and flip-flopping back and forth about retirement. Aaron Rodgers has done none of those things. You could argue maybe there's a little bit of decline, but I would counter-argue that the skill position players around him have been piss poor at best, save Davante Adams. And finally, they released Aaron Jones. But I digress on that point. Next point, the reason this is a dissimilar situation compared to what happened years ago was that Aaron Rodgers at the time when he was drafted was the potential number 1 overall pick. It was between him and Alex Smith. Smith got the nod. Aaron Rodgers fell to the Packers. The rest is history. Jordan Love was never in any sort of discussion or contention to be the number 1 overall pick. It was going to be Joe Burrow or nothing. And he wasn't even really in discussion to go top 5. There was people on the internet that were like, yeah, this guy's got potential to be top 5, but it wasn't going to happen. So his range was anywhere from between like 10 and round 2, which is a pretty broad spectrum for a quarterback prospect, but the potential is there. The guy's got really good arm talent. Go back and watch the Wake Forest film from last year, because that's the one that I always take a look at. That first game of the season it shows you a good distribution of where he needs to work and what he's really good at. And he really does elevate talent around him if you watch the game. I mean, Utah State doesn't have the best talent in the world, Mountain West Conference, hello. But it looks like he's able to elevate those guys to another level. So it'll be interesting to see how many years he has to sit and wait behind Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is 37, and time will tell. Moving on, round 2, pick 62, A.J. Dillon, running back from Boston College. This is also a head scratcher because definitely not the best running back on the board at the time. I think at this point it was Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins, and DeAndre Swift were all off the board. But you could have had yourself a Cam Akers. You could have had yourself Zach Moss. I think you could have had Cam Akers. Did he go before this? I'll have to double check. You probably could have even taken Anthony McFarland. There's numerous other running backs that I would have had before A.J. Dillon, but A.J. Dillon is the guy, and he was productive at Boston College. In 3 years, he had 8,000, Jesus. He had 4,382 rushing yards, 5.2 yards per carry, 38 touchdowns for his career. Last year, he was the number one ACC running back with 1,685 yards. The only my worries and concerns is that this kid has already got a lot of tread on the tires. He had 845 carries in 3 years at Boston College. That is a lot. He's also not much of a receiving threat. I think he only had 21 catches for, a chunk of change in terms of yardage. So he's going to be a Derrick Henry type of running back, if you will. Moving on to round 3, pick 94, Josiah Gura, tight end from Cincinnati. I watched some of his footage after this pick was made because I was like, I'm not familiar with this kid. And he looks pretty decent, actually. This isn't going to be I don't think it's a bad selection, but the rumor that I've heard is that Matt LaFleur wants to move him to fullback and then start to use him as a mimic to the Kyle, how do you say his name in San Francisco? Kyle Kajuskic, I think. I'm probably just butchered that, but somebody will correct me in the comments, please, and thank you. They want to mimic that offense and put him in that role. So essentially, you're drafting a fullback in round 3 with the 94th overall pick. I don't know. I don't think you should play him out of position. He looks pretty good as a tight end on film. Moving on to round 5, pick 175, Kamal Martin, linebacker from Minnesota. Pretty good, decent interior linebacker. Finished his career with 177 tackles, 3.5 sacks, 4 interceptions at Minnesota. It's something they needed. They finally realized that Blake Martinez was hot garbage. Moving on to the 6th round, we have 3 offensive linemen. 192, John Runyon, guard from Michigan. Pick 208, Jake Hansen, center from Oregon. Pick 209, Simon Stepaniak. I probably butchered that. Guard from Indiana. Interesting choices given that they got Elgin Jenkins last year, who has been a phenomenal interior offensive lineman for them. I'm super jealous of that draft pick from a year ago. So it looks like they decided to triple down on that position and get as many bodies as they could. And then we have a couple late 7th-round picks. 236, Vernon Scott, DB from TCU. Not a bad career. 86 tackles, 2 interceptions, 10 passes defended during his time at TCU. And pick 242, Jonathan Garvin, edge rusher from Miami. If you're going to get an edge rusher this late, especially at the tail end of the draft, this is probably one that you want. He finished with 106 tackles and 12.5 sacks during his career with the Hurricanes, and he was the number 3 ACC edge rusher when tackles for loss in 2018 with 17. So he can get in the backfield and cause problems and disruption. So that is all 7 rounds for the Green Bay Packers. And as a whole, this draft class is going to take a couple years before you could really put a grade on it. I know a lot of people like to do grades now. I'm not one of them. Maybe in a number of years I'll do it for clickbait. I don't know. But as of right now, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't, because I like the Jordan Love pick, but at the same time, it feels like it's 2 years too early. You got Aaron Rodgers under contract for 4 years before he's not going to dump any dead money on you to be able to get rid. I shouldn't kick my tripod. Yikes. So that's the problem. And he's also going to take some time to develop. So you're not going to see him on the field this year. This is a team that went 13-3 last year and was 1 game away from the Super Bowl. And now that they're just trying to totally reshuffle their team identity because they want to mimic the 49ers offense. That to me tells me one of 2 things. Either A, this team was a 13-3 fraud last year and played way better than its expectations. Or B, they finally have figured out, for whatever reason, that they believe that the Aaron Rodgers magic bullshit machine is run its course and he has no tricks left in the tank. Because Aaron Rodgers, let's be honest, despite me being a Vikings fan and disliking it when this team wins, stuff, he has willed this franchise into a number of wins these past couple years as they have just done nothing to help him out on offense. So, I mean, ever since Jordy Nelson left, it feels like this offense has just been a shell of its former self. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes. A.J. Dillon is a backup, I guess, at this point, because you have Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. I think it's Jamal Williams. And then a tight end that you might want to move to fullback, and then you go linebacker, guard, center, guard, DB, edge. No skill position players. You're going to really run out there with Adam Lazard, who I like. You know, I appreciate him. I think he's a good player, but I don't know. Questionable things all around. The only other explanation that I can come up with is that maybe, just maybe, the Packers feel like they're going to lose a year because of COVID-19, and they're not going to be able to get a full year out of this current roster, and they're building for the next year because, you know, like I said, Aaron Rodgers is 37. The only problem is that contract. So that would be a long game gamble, in my opinion. So I hope that's not the reason, and I don't think it is, but that's a working theory. So that's going to do it. This episode ran a little long. Thank you very much for watching this draft class recap, and I'll see you in the next one.